The stars had never been kind to humanity. For 60 years, Earth had been a member of the Galactic Concord, but membership meant nothing when you were weak. The alien races that ruled the galaxy looked at humans the way a person might look at an insect. They were small. They were fragile. They were nothing. Admiral Grace Holloway stood on the bridge of the carrier Resolute and stared at the message on her screen. Her hands were shaking, but her face showed nothing. She had learned long ago to hide her emotions. In the military, emotions were a weakness. But this message tested her control like nothing before Kepler 442b was gone. The colony had been home to 40,000 people. Families, children, scientists working to build a better future. All of them were dead now. The Valkyrie Dominion had come with their warships and burned everything to ash. They had not even given a reason. They did not need one. Humans were weak, and the weak did not deserve explanations. Grace closed her eyes and took a deep breath. She had known many of those people. She had visited the colony just 2 years ago and shaken hands with the governor, a kind old man named Henry Price, who had dreamed of turning that distant world into a paradise. Now he was dead. His dream was dead. And the galaxy did not care. The Galactic Concord had responded to the massacre with silence. When Earth's ambassador demanded justice, the Concord representatives had simply looked away. One of them, a tall creature with 4 arms and cold black eyes, had even laughed. Humans were a developing species, they said. Developing species could not expect protection. That was the law. Grace opened her eyes and looked at her crew. They were good people, all of them. Lieutenant Commander Danny Shaw stood at the helm, his jaw tight with anger. Ensign Katie Morris worked at the communication station, her eyes red from crying. They had all heard the news. They all felt the same helpless rage. But what could they do? Earth's entire fleet was 12 ships. The Valkyrie Dominion had thousands. Fighting back would be suicide. So they did nothing. They sat in the darkness of space and swallowed their pride and pretended that everything was fine. Back on Earth, the mood was different. In a bunker deep beneath the Nevada desert, Secretary of Defense Nathan Cole sat at a long table with the Joint Chiefs of Staff. The room was cold and lit by harsh white lights. Maps and data screens covered the walls. But Nathan was not looking at any of them. He was looking at a photograph. The photograph showed a ship. It was enormous, nearly 3 kilometers long, with sleek black armor and weapons that looked like nothing the galaxy had ever seen. The ship had no official name in any public record. It did not exist as far as the rest of the world knew. But Nathan knew the truth. He had watched this ship being built for the past 30 years. They called it the Tempest. General Maria Santos leaned forward in her chair. She was a small woman with gray hair and sharp eyes. She had fought in 3 wars and had never lost. But even she looked nervous today. "The president wants to know if it's ready," she said. "After what happened at Kepler 442b, he's ready to give the order." Nathan nodded slowly. He thought about all the years of work that had gone into this moment. 30 years ago, a strange vessel had crashed in the Pacific Ocean. The aliens inside were dead, but their technology was intact. Earth scientists had studied that technology in secret. They had learned from it. And then they had improved it. The result was the Tempest, a warship unlike anything in the galaxy. Its armor could adapt to any attack, learning and changing in real time. Its weapons could bypass shields completely, striking directly at the enemy's hull. And at its heart was an artificial intelligence more advanced than anything the alien races had ever created. The galaxy thought humans were weak. They were wrong. "It's ready," Nathan said. "The Tempest has been ready for 5 years. We were just waiting for the right moment." General Santos smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "I think we found our moment." Nathan stood up and walked to the window. There was no view, of course. They were hundreds of meters underground. But he stared at the blank wall as if he could see through it to the stars beyond. "The Valkyrie think they can kill our people without consequences," he said. "The Concord thinks they can ignore us forever. They're about to learn how wrong they are." He turned back to face the others. His eyes were hard. "Find me a commander for the Tempest. Someone who won't hesitate. Someone who understands what's at stake. And then we're going to show the galaxy what humanity can do when we're pushed too far." Far away, in a small apartment on Mars, Commander Jack Reeves was trying to sleep. He had been stationed on the Red Planet for 2 years now, running training exercises and filing reports. It was boring work, but he did not complain. After everything he had seen in his career, boring was almost welcome. His communicator buzzed. He groaned and rolled over, grabbing the device from his nightstand. The message was short and unsigned. "Report to Earth immediately. Classified assignment. Tell no one." Jack stared at the words for a long moment. He had received strange orders before, but nothing like this. Something big was happening. He could feel it in his bones. He got out of bed and began to pack. He did not know what was waiting for him on Earth, but he had a feeling that his boring days were over. Outside his window, the stars burned cold and bright. Somewhere out there, the Valkyrie were celebrating their easy victory over helpless humans. Somewhere out there, the Galactic Concord was laughing at Earth's weakness. They would not be laughing for much longer. The Tempest was coming. And when it arrived, nothing in the galaxy would ever be the same again. Humanity had been patient. Humanity had been quiet. But humanity had not been idle. In the shadows, in the silence, Earth had been preparing for this moment. The day of reckoning was finally here. The transport ship descended through thick clouds and emerged above a desert that seemed to stretch forever. Jack Reeves pressed his face to the window like a child, watching the brown and red landscape roll beneath him. He had been to Nevada before, but never to this part. There was nothing here. No cities, no roads. Just endless sand and rock. And yet, this was where they were taking him. The ship landed on a small platform surrounded by armed guards. Jack stepped out into the hot desert air and squinted against the bright sun. A woman in a military uniform was waiting for him. She had dark skin and a serious face. "Commander Reeves," she said. "I'm Colonel Diane Webb. Welcome to Site 7. Jack looked around. There was nothing to see except sand and a small metal building that looked like a storage shed. "Site 7? There's nothing here." Colonel Webb smiled. It was the kind of smile that suggested she knew something he did not. "Follow me, Commander. Everything will make sense soon." She led him into the small building. Inside was a single elevator. They stepped in, and the doors closed. Jack watched the numbers on the display climb higher and higher. They were going down, far down. After 2 full minutes, the elevator finally stopped. The doors opened, and Jack's breath caught in his throat. He was standing in an underground hangar so vast that he could not see the far end. The ceiling was hundreds of meters high. Thousands of workers moved across the floor like ants, operating machinery and carrying equipment. But none of that mattered. What mattered was the ship. It filled the hangar like a sleeping giant. 3 kilometers of black armor, curved and smooth like a predator waiting to strike. Weapons bristled from its sides, strange designs that Jack had never seen before. The ship was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. "Commander Reeves," Colonel Webb said, "meet the Tempest, the first and only Hurricane-class warship ever built. And you're going to command it." Jack could not speak. He just stared at the impossible vessel in front of him. In all his years in the military, he had never seen anything like this. He had not known anything like this could exist. Over the next 3 days, Jack learned everything about his new ship. The Tempest was built using technology from an alien crash site, but human engineers had taken that technology and pushed it far beyond what the original builders had imagined. The hull was made of adaptive armor that could learn from attacks and change its structure to resist them. The engines were faster than anything in the known galaxy, and the weapons were something entirely new. They called them quantum lances. Jack stood in the weapons bay and listened as Chief Engineer Molly Grant explained how they worked. Molly was a short woman with messy brown hair and grease stains on her uniform. She talked fast and moved faster, her hands waving as she described the science behind the lances. "Every other weapon in the galaxy has to get through shields first," she said. "Shields block energy, they block projectiles, they block everything. But quantum lances don't play by those rules. They use quantum tunneling to bypass shields completely. The beam just appears inside the enemy ship and tears it apart from the inside." Jack shook his head in amazement. "That's impossible." Molly grinned. "That's what everyone said. But here we are." Jack met the rest of his senior crew over the following days. Derek Stone was his weapons officer, a tall man with a shaved head and calm eyes. He had served in Earth's fleet for 20 years and had seen more combat than anyone Jack knew. Lisa Vance was the navigator, a young woman with red hair and a brilliant mind for mathematics. She could calculate hyperspace jumps in her head faster than most computers. But the most important member of the crew was not human at all. "Hello, Commander Reeves," said a warm voice from the speakers. "My name is Sam. I am the artificial intelligence that operates this vessel. I look forward to working with you." Jack stood in the command center and looked at the glowing blue sphere that represented Sam's core. "You're an AI? I've worked with ship computers before. They're not like this." "I am not a simple computer," Sam replied. "I was designed using a new neural architecture that allows me to think and adapt like a living being. I can process information millions of times faster than a human brain, but I can also learn, improvise, and make decisions in ways that other AIs cannot. I am, in many ways, alive." There was something strange about talking to Sam. The AI's voice was friendly and calm, but Jack could sense something deeper underneath. Intelligence, power, maybe even ambition. "Can I trust you?" Jack asked. Sam was quiet for a moment. "I was created to protect humanity, Commander. That purpose is at the core of everything I am. You can trust me to always act in the best interest of Earth and its people. I cannot promise anything more than that. But I think that should be enough." Jack nodded slowly. He supposed it would have to be. On the 4th day, Jack received his orders. Secretary of Defense Nathan Cole appeared on the main screen, his face grim and tired. "Commander Reeves, you know what happened at Kepler 442b. 40,000 people are dead, and the galaxy doesn't care. We've spent 60 years being treated like dirt by races that think they're better than us. That ends now." Nathan leaned forward. "Your mission is to take the Tempest to the Arcturus system. The Valkyrie 3rd Fleet is stationed there. They're the ones who destroyed our colony. You will engage them and show them what humanity is capable of. You will not ask for surrender. You will not show mercy. You will send a message that the entire galaxy will hear." Jack felt his heart beating faster. This was it. The moment everything changed. "Understood, sir," he said. "What are my rules of engagement?" Nathan's eyes were cold. "You have none. Do whatever you need to do." The screen went dark. Jack turned to face his crew. They were all watching him, waiting for his orders. Molly, Derek, Lisa, and Sam, whose blue sphere pulsed gently in the center of the room. "You heard the man," Jack said. "We have work to do. Let's show the galaxy what the Tempest can do." The great ship began to hum with power as its engines came to life. Slowly, impossibly, the hangar doors above them began to open. Sunlight poured in for the first time in 30 years. The tempest rose from the desert like a monster waking from a long sleep. It climbed through the atmosphere and broke free of Earth's gravity. In seconds, it was among the stars. The hunt had begun. The Arcturus system was beautiful in a cold, empty way. 3 gas giants circled a bright orange star, their rings of ice and rock glittering like jewelry. Between them, hidden in the shadow of the largest planet, the Valkyrie Third Fleet waited. 40-7 warships hung in formation, their dark hulls marked with red symbols that meant death in a dozen languages. These ships had destroyed countless worlds. They had burned cities and killed millions. The crews aboard them had never known defeat. Supreme Warlord Korvax stood on the bridge of his flagship, the blood tide, and watched his fleet with pride. He was a massive creature, nearly 3 meters tall, with gray skin covered in battle scars. His forearms were crossed over his chest, and his black eyes reflected the light of distant stars. Korvax had commanded the attack on Kepler 442b. He had watched the human colony burn and felt nothing but satisfaction. Humans were weak creatures, soft and fragile. Destroying them was almost boring. But the Dominion had ordered the attack, and Korvax always followed orders. Now he waited in Arcturus for his next assignment. Perhaps another human colony to destroy. Perhaps something more interesting. It did not matter. Korvax lived for war, and war always found him. "Supreme Warlord," said one of his officers, a smaller Valkyrie with nervous eyes. "We are detecting a hyperspace signature at the edge of the system. A single vessel." Korvax turned slowly. "One vessel? What kind?" "Unknown, Supreme Warlord. The design does not match anything in our database. But the size is impressive. Nearly 3 kilometers. Korvax felt a spark of interest. A ship at large, coming alone into Valkyrie territory? That was either very brave or very stupid. Probably both. "Show me," he commanded. The main screen flickered to life, and Korvax saw the strange ship for the first time. It was black and sleek, with smooth curves that seemed wrong somehow. The weapons along its hull were unlike anything he had seen before, and it was coming straight toward his fleet at incredible speed. Korvax laughed, a deep rumbling sound that echoed through the bridge. "One ship? The humans have sent one ship against us? They are even more foolish than I thought." He raised one of his 4 arms and pointed at the screen. "All ships move to intercept. Destroy that vessel and bring me the wreckage. I want to mount the human commander's skull on my wall." The Valkyrie fleet began to move, spreading out into attack formation. 47 ships against 1. It would be over in minutes. On the bridge of the Tempest, Commander Jack Reeves watched the enemy fleet approach. His heart was pounding, but his hands were steady on the arms of his command chair. Around him, his crew worked in focus to silence. "They're coming," Lisa Vance reported from the navigation station. 47 ships. Heavy cruisers, destroyers, and 1 battleship. They'll be in weapons range in 4 minutes. "Let them come," Jack said quietly. Derek Stone looked up from the weapons console. His face was calm, but there was a fire in his eyes. "Quantum lances are charged and ready, Commander. Just give the word." Jack nodded. He turned to the blue sphere in the center of the bridge. "Sam, are you ready?" "I am always ready, Commander," Sam replied. "I have analyzed the enemy formation and identified optimal targets. Their shields are powerful, but meaningless against our weapons. Their tactics are predictable. They expect us to fight like every other species they have encountered, and we won't. No, Commander, we will not." The Valkyrie fleet opened fire at maximum range. Hundreds of plasma bolts streaked through space toward the Tempest, bright green lights that promised destruction. Any normal ship would have tried to dodge or retreat. Jack did neither. "Sam, take us in," he ordered. Full speed. The Tempest surged forward, flying straight into the storm of enemy fire. Plasma bolts struck the hull and exploded against the adaptive armor. But the armor held. More than that, it learned. With each impact, it changed its structure, becoming more resistant. After the first 30 seconds, the enemy weapons were doing almost no damage at all. The Valkyrie officers stared at their screens in disbelief. Their weapons were hitting the target. They could see the explosions. But the human ship kept coming, untouched and unslowed. "Impossible," Korvax growled. "Increase firepower. All ships, concentrate fire on that vessel." The attack intensified. The space around the Tempest became a wall of green fire. And still the black ship came on, like a shark swimming through a school of panicking fish. Jack waited until they were close. Close enough to see the details of the enemy hulls. Close enough to look into their eyes, if they had been standing face to face. "Derek," he said. "Fire." The quantum lance is activated. There was no beam, no flash of light. One moment the nearest Valkyrie cruiser was intact. The next moment it was breaking apart, its hull torn open from the inside as if a giant had reached in and ripped it to pieces. Then another ship died. And another. And another. Sam coordinated the attack with perfect precision, identifying weak points and prioritizing targets. The Tempest spun and danced through the enemy formation like a blade, untouchable and deadly. Every few seconds, another quantum lance fired. Every few seconds, another ship died. The Valkyrie tried to run. They broke formation and scattered in every direction, abandoning their disciplined tactics in pure animal terror. But the Tempest was faster. Sam calculated intercept courses in microseconds, and the great ship moved to cut off escape routes before the enemy even knew where they were going. Korvax watched his fleet die around him. Ship after ship vanished from his tactical display. His officers were screaming. His bridge was in chaos. For the first time in his long career, the Supreme Warlord felt something he had never experienced before. Fear. "Get us out of here," he roared. "Jump to hyperspace now." The Blood Tide's engines powered up, preparing for an emergency jump. But before the ship could escape, a quantum lance tore through its engine section. The massive battleship went dark, drifting helplessly through space. 11 minutes. That was all it took. In 11 minutes, the Valkyrie Third Fleet ceased to exist. 46 ships were destroyed. Only the crippled Blood Tide remained, surrounded by wreckage and bodies. Jack stood up from his command chair and walked to the front of the bridge. He looked down at the destruction his ship had caused. He should have felt something. Horror, maybe, or guilt. But all he felt was a cold satisfaction. These were the creatures who had killed 40,000 innocent people. They deserved this. "Open a channel," he said. "Wide broadcast to all surviving escape pods." Derek nodded. "Channel open, Commander." Jack's voice was steady and calm as he spoke. "This is Commander Jack Reeves of the Earth vessel Tempest. Your fleet is destroyed. Your Supreme Warlord is captured. You are alive only because I choose to let you live." He paused, letting the words sink in. "Go home. Tell your leaders what happened here. Tell them that humanity remembers Kepler 442b. Tell them that if they ever attack our people again, we will come for them. And next time, we will not be so merciful." He cut the channel and turned away from the screen. Behind him, Molly Grant let out a long breath. "Think they got the message?" she asked. Jack smiled grimly. "They got it. Now let's make sure the rest of the galaxy hears it too." The Tempest turned and accelerated away from the graveyard of ships. Its mission was complete. But the war for humanity's place in the galaxy had only just begun. The news spread across the galaxy like fire through dry grass. Within hours, every species in the Galactic Concord had heard the story. A single human ship had destroyed an entire Valkyrie fleet. 47 warships gone in 11 minutes. The mighty Third Fleet, which had terrorized 100 worlds, reduced to floating wreckage by a race that everyone had dismissed as weak and worthless. No one could believe it. And yet the evidence was impossible to deny. The escape pods from the battle had been picked up by passing traders. The survivors told their stories to anyone who would listen. They described the black ship that moved like a ghost, the weapons that ignored shields, the cold voice of the human commander promising revenge. By the time the Galactic Concord called an emergency session, panic had already taken hold. The Great Hall of the Concord was an enormous dome floating in orbit around a neutral planet. Representatives from 100 species sat in curved rows, their strange faces turned toward the central platform. Normally, these meetings were calm and orderly. Today, everyone was shouting. "This is an act of war," screamed the Valkyrie ambassador, a thin creature with too many teeth. "The humans attacked our fleet without warning. They must be punished." "Your fleet was stationed in neutral space," replied a soft voice from across the hall. Ambassador Penny Howard stood at the human delegation's podium, her gray hair pulled back in a neat bun. She was 60 years old and had spent her entire career fighting for Earth's interests in a galaxy that did not care. Today, for the first time, people were listening. "Furthermore," Penny continued, "the Valkyrie Third Fleet is the same force that destroyed our colony at Kepler 442b 3 weeks ago. 40,000 civilians murdered. When we brought this crime to the Concord, you did nothing. You laughed at us. You told us that developing species cannot expect protection." She looked around the hall, meeting the eyes of each representative in turn. "Well, it seems we have developed faster than you expected." The hall erupted in chaos. Some delegates were furious, demanding that Earth be expelled from the Concord. Others were terrified, wondering if their own worlds might be next. But a third group, smaller and quieter, watched the human ambassador with something that looked almost like hope. These were the other lesser species, the ones who had suffered under Valkyrie aggression for generations, the ones who had been ignored by the Concord, just like Earth had been ignored. They had never had the strength to fight back. But now, maybe, things were different. One of them stood up. She was a small creature with blue skin and large silver eyes, the ambassador from a world called Theron. Her people had been enslaved by the Valkyrie for 200 years before winning their freedom. They had no love for the Dominion. "I would like to speak," she said. Her voice was soft, but it carried through the hall. The shouting died down as everyone turned to look at her. "My people know what it is like to be weak," she continued. "We know what it is like to be crushed by those who are stronger. For too long, this Concord has protected the powerful and abandoned the vulnerable. Perhaps it is time for that to change." She turned to face Penny Howard. "Earth has shown that strength does not always belong to those who have held it the longest. I believe my government would be interested in discussing closer relations with humanity." Other delegates began to murmur. Some were angry, but others were nodding in agreement. The balance of power in the Concord, unchanged for centuries, was beginning to shift. Meanwhile, in the dark spaces between stars, the Valkyrie Dominion was preparing for war. Grand Admiral Vex stood on the bridge of the Endless Fury, the largest warship in the Dominion's fleet. It was a monster of metal and fire, 5 kilometers long, bristling with weapons that could crack planets. Around it, 300 other ships were gathering. Every available vessel had been called to this place. Every warrior, every weapon, every resource the Dominion could spare. They would crush humanity once and for all. Vex was old for a Valkyrie, his gray skin marked with the scars of 1,000 battles. He had conquered worlds. He had destroyed civilizations. He had never been defeated. And he did not intend to start now. "The humans have one ship," he said to his officers. "One. We have 300. Whatever tricks they used against the Third Fleet will not work against us. We will overwhelm them with numbers. We will burn their worlds and enslave their people. And when it is over, no one in the galaxy will ever challenge the Dominion again." His officers cheered. The sound echoed through the massive bridge like the roar of a hungry beast back at Earth. The mood was different. The celebration over the Tempest victory had faded as intelligence reports came in. The Valkyrie were gathering their forces. A fleet larger than anything humanity had ever faced was preparing to attack. Admiral Grace Holloway stood in a conference room on the Resolute, surrounded by holographic displays showing the enemy positions. Her 12 ships were nothing compared to what was coming. Even with the Tempest, they were badly outnumbered. Commander Jack Reeves appeared on one of the screens, transmitting from his ship. "Admiral, I've seen the reports. 300 ships. That's a lot, even for us." "I know," Grace replied. "The Tempest is powerful, but it's not invincible. If they swarm you with enough firepower, eventually something will get through." Jack nodded slowly. "What are you suggesting?" Grace looked at him with steady eyes. "I'm suggesting that you don't fight alone. I'm suggesting that you don't fight alone. The Resolute and the rest of Earth's fleet will be there with you. Admiral, with respect, your ships can't survive a battle like this. You'll be destroyed." "Maybe," Grace said. "But if we're going to change the galaxy, we do it together." "That's what you said, isn't it? That we have to show the galaxy what humanity stands for." "Well, humanity doesn't hide behind its champions. We stand together, or we fall together." Jack was quiet for a long moment. Then he smiled, a real smile for the first time since this all began. "Together, then," he said. "Where do we make our stand?" Grace pulled up a star chart. Her finger pointed to a single dot in neutral space. "The Vega system. It's halfway between Earth and Valkyrie territory. Open space. No civilians to worry about. If we're going to fight the biggest battle in human history, that's where we'll do it." Jack nodded. "I'll have Sam start calculating the odds." "Don't bother," Grace replied. "I already know the odds. They're terrible. But we're going to win anyway." She cut the connection and turned to face her crew. Danny Shaw, Katie Morris, all the others who had served with her for years. They were scared. She could see it in their eyes. But they were also ready. "You heard the plan," she said. "We're going to Vega. We're going to face 300 enemy ships with 13 of our own. And we're going to teach the galaxy a lesson they'll never forget." She walked to the main viewport and looked out at the stars. Humanity doesn't give up. Humanity doesn't surrender. And humanity never, ever forgets. The fleet began to move, 12 ordinary ships following one extraordinary one. They flew toward Vega, toward the enemy, toward a battle that would decide the fate of their entire species. The storm was coming, and Earth was ready to meet it. The Vega system had never seen so many ships. 300 Valkyrie warships filled the space between two barren planets, their formations stretching across thousands of kilometers. At their center, the endless fury waited like a predator surrounded by its pack. Grand Admiral Vex watched the empty space before him and smiled. Today, humanity would die. Then the human fleet arrived. 13 ships dropped out of hyperspace in perfect formation. 12 were ordinary vessels, carriers and cruisers that looked fragile compared to the Valkyrie monsters around them. But the 13th ship was different. The Tempest hung at the center of the formation, its black hull absorbing the light of distant stars. Vex laughed when he saw them. 13? They brought 13 ships to fight 300? The humans are even more foolish than I thought. He opened a communication channel. Human Commander, this is Grand Admiral Vex of the Volcari Dominion. You are outnumbered and outmatched. Surrender now, and I will grant your crews a quick death. Refuse, and I will make your suffering last for generations. Commander Jack Reeves stood on the bridge of the Tempest and listened to the threat. His crew was silent around him. Molly Grant at the engineering station. Derek Stone at weapons. Lisa Vance at navigation. And Sam, whose blue sphere pulsed gently in the center of the room. Admiral Holloway, Jack said over the fleet channel. Are you ready? Grace's voice came back, calm and steady. Ready, Commander. Let's show them what humanity is made of. Jack turned back to the main screen. Grand Admiral Vex, I have a counteroffer. Turn your fleet around and go home. Never threaten Earth or its people again. Do that, and you get to live. Vex's laughter echoed across the channel. You dare threaten me? With 13 ships? Kill them. Kill them all. The Volcari fleet surged forward. What happened next would be remembered for 1,000 years. Sam took control of the battle. The AI's consciousness expanded outward, connecting with every ship in the human fleet through quantum communication links. Suddenly, 12 ordinary vessels became extensions of a single brilliant mind. They moved as one organism, reacting to threats before they fully developed, finding gaps in the enemy formation that no organic commander could have seen. The Tempest led the charge, its quantum lances firing in rapid sequence. Enemy ships died with every shot, their shields useless against the weapons that struck from within. But this time, the Volcari were ready for the Black Ship. They concentrated their fire, thousands of weapons targeting a single point. Even adaptive armor had its limits. Warning lights flashed across the Tempest's bridge as impacts began to overwhelm the hull's ability to adapt. Sam, status report. Jack shouted over the noise. Armor integrity at 67% and falling. Sam replied, his voice still calm. I am redirecting power to the most damaged sections. However, I recommend we do not remain stationary. Then let's move. Lisa, attack pattern Omega. Derek, keep firing. Don't let them catch their breath. The Tempest spun and dove, moving through the enemy fleet like a dancer through a crowd. Its weapons never stopped firing. But for every ship it destroyed, 2 more took its place. The Volcari had numbers on their side, and they were willing to spend lives to bring down the human nightmare. Meanwhile, Earth's other ships were fighting their own desperate battle. The Resolute led the formation, its weapons blazing against the smaller Volcari cruisers. Admiral Grace Holloway stood on her bridge and directed her fleet with steady commands, her voice never wavering, even as enemy fire tore into her hull. Stay in formation, she ordered. Protect each other. Sam will create openings. We just have to survive long enough to use them. She was right. Every time a cluster of enemy ships tried to surround one of the human vessels, the Tempest would appear, quantum lances cutting through the attackers. Every time a human ship seemed about to fall, Sam would coordinate a rescue, redirecting fire and creating escape routes. But the Volcari were adapting too. Grand Admiral Vex had fought 1,000 battles. He saw the pattern in the human tactics, and he found a weakness. All ships ignored the black one, he commanded. Focus everything on the carrier, the one called Resolute. Destroy it, and their formation breaks. 50 Volcari warships broke off from the main battle and descended on the Resolute like wolves on a wounded deer. Plasma bolts hammered the carrier shields. Missiles streaked through space. The old ship shuddered under the assault. Hull breach on Deck 7. Someone shouted. We're losing atmosphere. Grace held onto her command chair as the bridge shook. Blood ran down her face from a cut above her eye, but she did not seem to notice. All hands, seal the damaged sections. Redirect power to forward shields. We hold the line. The attack intensified. More breaches. More damage. The Resolute was dying, and everyone knew it. Jack saw what was happening. He made his choice in an instant. Sam, new course. Put us between the Resolute and the enemy. Commander, if we take that position, we will absorb the fire meant for the Admiral's ship. Our armor integrity is already compromised. I know. Do it anyway. The Tempest moved. It placed its massive bulk between the wounded carrier and the attacking fleet, shielding the Resolute with its own body. Plasma bolts that would have destroyed the carrier struck the black ship instead. The adaptive armor screamed under the strain. Systems began to fail, but the Resolute survived Dot, and in that moment, Sam saw an opportunity. Commander, the Endless Fury has moved out of position. Its reactor is exposed. I can calculate a shot, but we will only have one chance. Jack looked at the tactical display. The Valkyrie flagship had advanced too far, eager to finish off the Resolute. Its defensive formation had gaps. Small gaps, but enough. Take the shot, Sam. The quantum lance fired. The beam was invisible, like all the others. But its effect was not. The Endless Fury's reactor core simply ceased to exist, converted instantly to expanding plasma. The chain reaction was beautiful in a horrible way, a flower of light blooming in the darkness. Grand Admiral Vex had exactly 1 second to realize what was happening. Then he was gone, along with his ship, his crew, and his dreams of conquest. The explosion tore through the surrounding ships, destroying a dozen more in the blast wave. And something broke in the Valkyrie fleet. They had come here expecting easy victory. Instead, they had found death. Ships began to flee. At first just a few, then more and more. The great armada that had seemed so invincible scattered in every direction. Their crews thinking only of survival. Jack watched them run. He thought about ordering pursuit, but he looked at his own damaged ship, at the wounded carrier floating nearby, at the exhausted faces of his crew. Let them go, he said quietly. They'll carry the story. That's enough. The battle was over. Humanity had one dot in the days that followed. The galaxy changed. The Galactic Concord offered Earth full membership with all rights and protections. The minor species who had supported humanity were elevated alongside them. The Valkyrie Dominion, broken and humiliated, retreated to their home territory and never threatened anyone again. Admiral Grace Holloway recovered from her injuries in a hospital on Earth. Jack visited her room, carrying flowers that seemed awkward in his rough hands. We did it, he said. We actually did it. Grace smiled. Her face was pale, but her eyes were bright. What happens now, Commander? What comes next? Jack walked to the window and looked out at the blue sky of Earth. Somewhere up there, among the stars, the Tempest waited for its next mission. Somewhere out there, a galaxy full of species was learning to see humanity in a new light. Now we make sure no one ever forgets, he said. We were weak once. We were ignored, bullied, dismissed. But we never gave up. We built something incredible, and when the time came, we used it to protect everything we love. He turned back to face her. That's what humanity does. We survive. We adapt. We overcome. And God help anyone who forgets it. Grace nodded slowly. The galaxy thought we were nothing. They were wrong, Jack said. And now they know it. Outside the hospital, the sun was setting over a world that had just become a lot more important. Earth had unleashed its Hurricane-class warship, and the galaxy would never be the same. Some storms passed quickly, leaving little trace. This one would be remembered forever.